everybody, this is Crystal. So today I'm going to show you how to make this cape here, okay? Please excuse my mess in the background. I'm redoing my Freddy wall, so I got to paint it and stuff. So we'll start off, it's got these clasps right here. Now these are called cape clasps. These can be purchased on Amazon. That's where I got mine. I will leave a link to these in the description box. It's not an affiliated link. I don't get money if you buy them, just in case you're interested. You don't have to use these. I think I mentioned in the video that you could use a, weave a yarn chain through, put some tassels on it, you know, underneath the hood, some beads. That would be pretty. 1 button, 3 buttons, anything like that. But this is what it looks like. I also think I mentioned a couple times in the video and I am 5'3", in case you wanted to know my height. It does, you've seen in the pictures how far it goes down on me. Once you put it down on, it does stretch a bit. The weight of it stretches a bit, but this is what it looks like. It does have the hood. Sorry about them tails that I have not hidden yet, but this is what she looks like. What do you guys think? Now, let me go ahead and take this off. As it stands, I think that it would fit size medium to probably 2X. Okay, that's my guess. I'll give you some measurements though. Now, if you want to make it bigger, I would suggest using a bigger hook, or you could even use a bigger weight yarn. Like this calls for a 4-weight. You could use like a bulky 5 and a bigger hook, and that would probably jump it up to like a 3X. And you know, just it's pretty forgiving as far as size goes. You can make it as long or short as you want. But now the stitches that you need to know, besides the basics, double and single, you're going to need to know how to do front post double crochet, back post double crochet, and bobble. I consider this an advanced beginner pattern. Don't be intimidated. You got this. You can do it, okay? Now I'm going to show you how to do it right now. Let's get started on it. Okay, measurement wise, starting at row 1, not counting the hood, all the way down is 39 inches, but you must remember when you put it on, it does stretch. So you've seen the way that it looked on me. I am 5'3". So you are more than welcome to make it longer or shorter than you want. But once you get it on, the weight of the cape will stretch out a bit. So this piece is folded in half right now. So from here to here, folded in half, is 33 inches. So at its widest point, it's about 66 inches across, because it does start to gather up right here. I put in some extra increases to make it gather. So I hope that helps you with the sizing standpoint. Okay, I chose not to put slits for armholes in mine because I didn't want that in mine. I didn't want that look. Now, if you want to put slits in it, it would be extremely easy to do. Just whenever you decided where the length that you wanted to put your armhole, you would just put a chain there instead of doing the shells for that row, and then the next row you would just start your shells again. So it would be really easy to put the slits. But for me, I didn't want those in this particular pattern, but you can put them if you like. Okay, for this project I used Yarn Bee Warm and Cozy. Now this comes from Hobby Lobby. It is a medium weight number 4. It is a lightweight number 4. It's an acrylic and nylon polyester blend. You don't have to use this yarn. Any medium 4-weight yarn will work. Or as I suggested, if you want to make it in a bigger size, a bulky 5 would work awesome for that too. The color that I chose here is mustard. Now there's 317 yards per skein, and I went through almost 8 of them. So it does take a bit of yarn to finish this. But like I said, this is a lighter weight 4, so If you get one that's a little thicker of a 4-weight, it may not take quite as much. But you're going to need about 2,300 yards, and that's to make it the size that you see me wearing in the picture. Of course, if you want to make it shorter, you won't need that much. If you want to make it, if you're taller than me and you want to make it go down all the way to the floor, you're going to need a lot more. But my size, you're going to need about 2,300 yards. And then I'm going to be using a size I, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You might see me in the video using another color, switching off and on. Is because I kept losing my hooks, but I used an I the entire time. Okay, you want to start off with a chain of 72. And once you get your chain of 72 done, we are going to put a double crochet in the 4th stitch from the hook. Now remember, we never count the one that's on our hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. In the 4th stitch, go ahead and double crochet. And now I'm going to work 1 double crochet in every stitch for the length of the chain. Just like that. So continue working 1 double crochet in every stitch until you get to the end of row 1. Alright, I have made it to the end of row 1, and you should have a total of 70 stitches now, and that includes this chain here on the end. You count him as a stitch. So counting him, we'll have a total of 72. So for row 2, we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So we want to do a double crochet into the first 4 stitches. So the first one goes right here in this very first stitch. So go ahead and double crochet into that. So we need 4 double crochets in a row. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we got 4 double crochets in a row. Now the next stitch, we are going to put 2 double crochets into the same stitch. And that is our increase stitch, putting 2 doubles into the same stitch. Now we're going to repeat that pattern. We're going to put 1 double crochet into the next 4 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the next stitch, we'll put 2 double crochets into the same stitch. That will be our increase. So that's the pattern we're going to repeat now for row 2. 1 double crochet into the next 4 stitches, and then 2 double crochets into the next. 1 double into the next 4, and then 2 doubles into the next. All the way until we get to the end of the row. Alright, I'm coming to the end of row 2. Now I did 4 double crochets in a row, and you should have 1 stitch left, and it'll be that chain there on the end. Put 2 double crochets into that last stitch, and now you should have a total of 84 stitches at the end of row 2. Row 3, we will chain 1 and turn our work. Okay, now we're going to start row 3. We are going to work 5 double crochets in a row, and then we'll put our increase into the next. So remember, we start out, our first double crochet always goes right here into this very first stitch. So we want to do 5 in a row. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now the next stitch will have 2 double crochets in the same stitch. So that'll be our increase. And that's going to be our repeat now for row 3. 1 double crochet into the next 5 stitches. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 double crochets into the next. And we are going to repeat this pattern until we get to the end of row 3. 1 double crochet into the next 5, and then 2 doubles into the next. 1 double crochet into the next 5, and then 2 double crochets into the next until we get to the end of the row. Alrighty, I'm coming to the end of a row 3, and I did 5 double crochets in a row. I have 1 stitch left, so you want to put 2 double crochets into that last stitch. That'll end row 3, and you should have a total of 98 stitches now. Okay, we're going to start row 4 now. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now we are going to put 1 double crochet into the first 6 stitches. Remember, the first one always goes right here in this very first spot. So we want to do 6 in a row. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the next stitch we'll get 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So that'll be our increase, and that's what we're going to repeat now for row 4. 1 double crochet into the next 6. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 double crochets into the next. So I'm going to repeat this pattern, 1 double crochet in the next 6, and then 2 double crochets in the next, all the way until I get to the end of the row. Alright, I have made it to the end of row 4. Your last stitch should have had 2 double crochets in it, and now you should have a total of 112 stitches. Row 5, we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. And now we're going to put 1 double crochet into the first 7 stitches. And then the next one we'll put 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So that'll be our increase stitch. And that's the repeat now for row 5. 1 double crochet into the next 7 stitches. And then 2 double crochets into the next. And I'm going to repeat that pattern all the way until I get to the end of the row. Alright, I've made it to the end of row 5. You should enter with 2 stitches into your last stitch. And now you should have a total of 126 stitches. For row 6, we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. And now we're going to put 1 double crochet into the first 8 stitches. There's 7 and 8, and then the next stitch we'll get 2 double crochets into the same stitch, so that'll be the increase. And that is a repeat now for row 6. 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. Six, 7, and 8, and then the next one will be 2 doubles into the same stitch. So I'm going to repeat that pattern of 1 double crochet in the next 8 and then 2 double crochets into the next, all the way down until I get to the end of my row. Alright, I have made it to the end of round 6 and I ended with 2 double crochets in my last stitch. And you should have a total of 140 stitches now. Now we'll start round 7 by chaining 1 and try that again. Chain 1 and turn our work. I bet you can probably guess what we're going to do now. We're going to put 1 double crochet into the first 9 stitches now. There's 9, and now we're going to put 2 double crochets into the next. So that is the repeat now for row 7. 1 double crochet into the next 9, and then 2 double crochets into the next, all the way until you get to the end of the row. Alrighty, I've made it to the end of row 7. I have ended in 2 double crochet, and I have a total of 154 stitches. So I'm going to start row 8 by chaining 1 and turn. Now we're going to put 1 double crochet into the first 10 stitches. There's 10, and in the next one we're going to put 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So that is the repeat for row 8. 1 double crochet into the next 10, and then 2 doubles into the next. 1 double into the next 10, and 2 into the next, and we're going to repeat that until we get to the end of the row. Alright, I have made it to the end of row 8, I believe. I lose track. Row 8, and you should have a total of 168 stitches. So for row 9, we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now we are going to we're not going to increase now. We are going to work across, and we're going to put 1 double crochet in every single stitch until we get to our last stitch. So 1 double in every stitch across here. This is for row 9, no increasing here, until we get to our last stitch, and I will meet you at the last stitch. Just like that. Alright, I am coming to the end of row 9. Now we just did 1 double crochet in every single stitch, and I am at my last stitch. I want to put 2 double crochets in my last stitch. So that is the only stitch that I put 2 double crochets in on this round. The last stitch gets 2 doubles, and that'll end row 9, and you will have 169 stitches. So now we're going to, row 10 is the bobble stitch row. So we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. Okay, now we're going to start off by putting 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches. So right there in your very first one, there's 1. And we're going to put a single crochet into the next stitch. So that's 2. In the next stitch, we're going to put a bobble. So this is how we do the bobble. We're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, and draw up a loop. And yarn over and go through the first 2 loops on our hook. We want to do that 5 times total. So that was number 1. Again, yarn over, go into the same stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, and go through the first 2. That's 2 times. Again, yarn over, go in the same stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops. That's 3 times. Again, yarn over, go into the same stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2. That's 4 times. One more time, yarn over, go into the same stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2. And you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 loops that remain. We want to yarn over and go through all 6 loops. Give it a tug, and then we're going to directly single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So go right into the next one, and we're going to put 1 single crochet, the next one 2 single crochets, and the next one after that will be our 3 single crochets. So there was 3 single crochets in a row we just did after that bobble, and there's the bobble on the other side. So we are going to repeat this from the bobble. So we're going to do a bobble into the next stitch. So we're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, and go through the first 2 loops. We want to repeat that 5 times. We want to have 5 times total. So that was number 1. Again, yarn over, go in the same stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2. That's 2 times. Again, three times, that's 4 times, and that's 5 times. 6 loops remain. Yarn over, go through all 6 loops, give it a nice tight tug, and then we're going to put 1 single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So there is 1, 2, and 3. And there you look, and you got your second bobble there on the other side. So we are going to repeat this again. So we're going to bobble again into the next stitch. So we're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2. We want to do that 5 times total. So that was 1, 2, there's 3, there's 4, and there's 5. 6 loops remain on your hook. Yarn over, go through all 6, give it a good tug, and then 1 single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And that's what we're going to repeat all the way until we get to the end of row 10. Again, I'll show you one more time. Bobble into the next. Six loops on your hook, yarn over, go through all 6, pull tight, 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches. There's 1, 2, and 3. And then we would start again with a bobble, and then 1 single crochet in the next 3. Bobble, 1 single crochet in the next 3 until we get to the end, and when you flip it over to the right side, that is where our bobbles are showing. All right, I have made it to the end of row 10. I just did my last bobble and I have 2 stitches left. I'm going to put 1 single crochet in each of the last 2 stitches. That'll end around row 10, and you'll still have 169 stitches counting the bobbles and the single crochets. So now we're going to start round 11 or row 11. I keep saying round, but it's row, whatever. Now we're going to start our shells. So this is going to be the main portion of the cape or cloak. Okay, so we're going to start off by putting 1 double crochet. This is on row 11 that we're on, in the very first stitch. Now we are going to skip 1 stitch, and in the next stitch we are going to put a shell. A shell consists of 5 double crochets all in the same stitch. So we're skipping this single crochet, and in the next stitch is actually on top of the bobble. We are going to work a shell. So right on top of that bobble, we will work 5 double crochets. Okay. Now we are going to skip 1 stitch, and in the next stitch we will double crochet. So skip 1, double in the next. Now we're going to skip 1 again, so that single crochet right there, and we're going to shell again, which is going to be on top of the bobble. So if you look at the bobble, if you flip it kind of upward, you'll see the stitches that you need to go the top of the stitch right there, and you work your shell, 5 double crochets, goes right on top of that bobble. Then we skip 1 stitch and double into the next. And then we skip 1 stitch and shell into the next, which is on top of the bobble. And that is what we're going to repeat now for row 11. Skip 1, double into the next, skip 1 and shell into the next, which is on top of the bobble. So the shell on this row always goes on top of the bobble stitch. Skip 1, double into the next, skip 1 and shell into the next, which is on top of the bobble. So I am going to repeat this pattern that we've been doing there. It's shell, skip 1, double into the next, skip 1, shell into the next, which is always on top of the bobble, and then you skip 1, then double, skip 1 and shell, skip 1 and double, and skip 1 and shell. So I'm going to do this until I get to the end of row 11. Alright, I have made it to the end of row 11. And I just did a shell and I have 2 stitches left. I'm going to skip 1 and double crochet into the last stitch. And now you should have a total of 42 shell stitches at the end of round 11. It's okay if it's a little wavy. It's going to be like that. That's fine. Now we're going to start row 12. So row 12 and 13 are the repeat rows for the rest of the cloak. So what we're going to do is chain 1 and turn our work. So since it's wavy, it'll get a little bit wider. As the more rows you put on, it'll get a little bit wider. So Okay, so for row 12, we chained 1 and turn, we're going to double crochet right back into that same first stitch. We always double crochet in the first stitch. And now we are going to find the middle stitch of the first shell. So you actually skip 2 stitches, skip, skip, and the next one will be the middle stitch. Go ahead and shell into that middle stitch. So 5 double crochets into that middle stitch. And now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches of the shell. We're going to be working in this double crochet right here. We are going to work a back post double crochet. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to go from behind around the post, and we're going to work a back post double crochet like that. Because this on the other side is the front side of our work where the bobbles are, and we want our posts to line up. So we have to work back post right now because we're working on the back side of our work. So now what we're going to do is jump to the next shell, and in the middle stitch of it, we're going to put a shell. So we'll skip 2 stitches, skip, skip, and the next one will be the middle stitch. So we're going to put a shell into that middle stitch. So it'll be 5 double crochets. And then we're going to skip the 2 stitches again of the shell, and then we're going to be working in this double, and we're going to put a back post double crochet around this double crochet right here. Just like that. And this is what we're going to repeat for the whole row, row 12. So we skip 2 stitches, skip, skip, and we'll be in the middle stitch of the shell, and we go ahead and work 5 double crochets. And then when you skip 2 again, skip, skip, you'll be at this double crochet here. Back post double crochet around that double crochet. And then we repeat. You skip 2, and you'll be in the middle of the shell. So you shell into that stitch. And then when you skip 2 again, skip, skip, you'll be at this double crochet here that's all by itself. Back post double crochet around that. And that's what I'm going to repeat all the way to the end of the row. And this is what it starts to look like from the front. You can see the post stitches start to stand out. They'll stand out more once we get more rounds or more rows going. But I'm just going to repeat this pattern until I get to the end of the row. I'll skip 2, and I'll be in the middle of the shell, so I'll shell into that stitch. And when you skip 2 again, you'll be at this double crochet here, back post double crochet around him, just like that, and repeat. So I'm going to go ahead and finish out row 12. Alright, I have made it to the end of row 12. I did my shell there in that middle, the last shell. I'm going to skip 2, and there'll be 1 stitch left. Just go ahead and do a regular double crochet into the top of your last stitch. That'll end row 12, and you still have 42 shells. The row 13, we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now it's very similar to row 12, except for one difference. We're going to start off by putting a double crochet into the very first stitch. We'll always put a double crochet into the very first stitch. And then we will shell into the middle of the first shell. So if you skip 2, the next stitch will be the middle stitch of the shell. So go ahead and put a shell in that one. And now we're going to skip 2, and then we're going to be at this double crochet here, this post stitch. Instead of putting a back post double crochet in it, since we're working on the front side of our work now, we're going to do a front post double crochet. So go right around the post of it from the front, and do a front post double crochet. So that is the only difference now. Instead we're doing everything the same, but instead of doing back post this time, we're doing front post. So again, we'll skip 2 and then we'll be in the middle of our shell. And then we shell right into the middle of it. And then we'll skip a 2 again, and then we're going to front post double crochet around the next. Skip 2 and you'll be in the middle of the shell. Shell into that stitch. Skip 2 and front post double around the next. So this is what we're going to repeat this time around. Every time we're on the front of our work, we always work front post double crochets. But whenever we're on the back of our work, we always do the back post double crochets. So I'm going to continue repeating this pattern until I get to the end of row 13. Okay, when you come to the end of round 13, please don't mind the color of the hook change. It's still the same size. I just, for some reason, lost the hook I was just using. Okay, once you come to the end of round 13, you want to skip 2 stitches, and then you'll end by putting a double crochet into your last stitch. 42 shells still. And that's the repeat now. Is you want to repeat rounds 12 and 13. And you can repeat those rounds until you get your shawl, or your cape, as long as you want it to be. Maybe you want a short one. Maybe you want one that drags the floor. That is completely up to you. But for me, I did, after you get to the end, you can go ahead and tie off. But for me, I did a total of 70 rows. And that is starting from the very, very first row up here, row 1 at the top. Row 1 all the way down. I did a total of 70. Remember, you do it as big as you want. And then you just tie off. Now I'm going to put a hood on it. So, go ahead and get your piece. Let's lay it out here. It's kind of big, so get it laid out here how we want it so we can work with it. Let's see. Oh! Okay, so here's the right side of my work. Right here you can see the bobbles. I'm going to start right here on this side of the collar. See, the collar area is right here. We're just going to be working back and forth on the collar area to form our hood. So you want to go ahead and get your yarn ready. Okay, I'm going to start into, remember, here's the right side because you see our bobbles are right here. I'm going to start in the very first stitch right here. This very first stitch. And I am going to pull my yarn through. I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to work a double crochet right back into that very same stitch that I just started in. And now I'm going to work across, and I'm going to put 1 double crochet in every stitch across the collar area here across the top. Just like that. So what I'm going to do is continue putting 1 double crochet in every stitch until I get right over here to the other side of my cape, and I'll meet you right over here. Alright, I have made it to the other side here, and you should have a total of 70 stitches because that's what we ended with on the very first row. If you don't, you know, if you have like 69 or 71, it's no big deal. It's not going to make a difference, so don't pull it out if it's not right. I'll be honest with you, I only got 69 right now, but I'm not gonna pull it out because it's okay. It's okay. So what I'm gonna do now is chain 1 and turn my work. And now what I'm going to do is just keep repeating that, working rows of double crochet back and forth across the top of our collar, and that's going to build up the hood. So I'm going to start, I chained 1 and turn. Always put your double crochet right there in that very first stitch, and then I'm going to work 1 double crochet in every stitch until I get back around to the other side. So the hood is just going to consist of rows of double crochet back and forth, 70 stitches at the end of every row, until we get some height on it, and then we'll seam up the top. So right now I'm on row 2 of the hood, putting 1 double crochet in every stitch all the way across until we get back right over here to where we started. Alright, once you make it back around to the end of row 2, you still should have your 70 stitches. In my case, I only got 69. Oops, so we won't tell anybody. What we're going to do is we're just going to keep repeating that. So we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And we're going to work across again, putting 1 double crochet in every stitch, starting in that very first stitch. So I'm just going to keep doing rounds of 1 double crochet in every stitch until this hood gets some height on it. Now remember, it's not going to look like a hood until we seam it up at the top, but we need to get quite a bit of height before we do that. So I'm just going to keep doing rows of 1 double crochet in every stitch. Now I'm not quite sure how many I'm going to do, but I'm going to keep working at it, and I'll let you know here in just a little bit how many total rows I do. So we're on row 3 now of the hood. Alrighty, now on my hood, I have done a total of 23 rows on the hood. If you want your hood bigger, you can make it taller, you know, to where to be big, a lot bigger and baggier around your face than what you see mine is, but that's up to you. But I did a total of, starting from the first row of the hood up, is 23. Now I did not tie off. Now what we're going to do is slip stitch it together. So here's the right side of my work. You can see the bobbles right here. I want to fold the top in half like this, so where the right side's facing up here, and then when we slip stitch it together, we'll flip it right side out and the seam will be on the inside of the work. So one more time, here's the right side of our work. You can see bobbles are facing up. Here's the hood. Fold it together like this. Okay, and now we're going to slip stitch it. So I didn't tie off. I'm just going to start where I ended there. I got my hood folded in half, and I'm going to slip stitch the top together. So I'm going to start, my hooks or my yarn's over here on the other side, and that's fine. What I'm going to do is go into the stitch on the other side and then back into the stitch, first stitch over here, and slip stitch. And now I'm going to do that all the way across. Go into the next stitch here on this side, and the next stitch on the other side, and slip stitch. Again, this stitch, and then the next stitch on the other side, just matching up the stitches, and then slip stitching. So I'm just slip stitching my hood at the top across together, and I'm doing it on the wrong side. So when we flip it inside out, the seam will be on the inside. So I'm going to do this all the way down, slip stitch my hood up till I get to the end of the hood, and it's all slip stitched up like that. You see how we're slip stitching it together, and then when we're done, we will flip it, and this will be the right side, and then our seam will be nice and neat. So we will continue slip stitching all the way across here till you get to the end here. All right, I've made it all the way across, and I slip stitched it all together. Now I'm going to tie off. I'm going to hide my tail real quick here before I flip it inside out. So I'm just going to take this and kind of weave in my tail. I don't usually show myself hiding my tails. I'm going to go back the other way now. Well, you get the picture. Just hide it, your tail here until you feel like it's not going to come undone. And then what we will do is take our hood and flip it inside out, or right side out. And there we go. Now that's a nice clean seam right there. Don't get much cleaner than that, does it? Looks good. I like it. So there's that. So now we got our right side of our work facing us. We're almost done. We're almost done. Let's clean up all these edges now. It's going to take a little bit because it's so long. Okay, let's see. So I got the right side of my work facing me. Bobbles are right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom of my work. Okay? And I'm going to work evenly spaced out single crochets all the way up this long side. And then all the way up here, evenly spacing out, all the way around my hood, the top of my hood, around to the other side of my hood. And then I'm going to go all the way back down, evenly spacing out the other long side of my, all the way down to the bottom. So, I'm going to start over here at the bottom. Now, when I say evenly space out my single crochets, the amount of single crochets you have here doesn't really matter. It's just trying to get your single crochets spaced out as evenly as you can. I usually go by 2 single crochets to every double crochet here. That's kind of what I always say, but you know, doesn't have to be like that. But I'm going to start right here into this first double crochet. And I am going to chain 1. I'm going to go back in the same spot and single crochet. And like I said, I try to put 2 singles into every double, but doesn't always happen. Just do your best to evenly space out your single crochets. I kind of work in between the stitches like this. And all this is doing is cleaning up these edges. Now, this isn't anything you like necessarily have to do. I mean, I just think it makes it look a little cleaner doing this. So this is what I'm going to do. All the way up and then around the hood and all the way back down. It's going to make it look a lot more finished, I guess I should say. A nice clean edge on everything. It gives it a nice appearance, especially if you're going to be selling stuff. And remember, the amount of single crochets you have here doesn't matter. I'm not even going to count mine. I'm just going to do my best to evenly space out my single crochets and try to put 2 single crochets on the side of, or into each one of these double crochets here, all the way up the side. Just like that. See, that looks a lot neater. So I'm going to continue all the way up to the side, all the way up the side here. And I'll meet you kind of up here by the bobbles, okay? And then we'll start working up the hood and stuff. Alright, I have made it up here kind of by the bobble row. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue putting, evenly spacing out my single crochets. Trying to work 2 single crochets to every double. All the way up here. And all the way up to my hood seam. And then we'll just go around the hood seam. And continue on the other side doing the same thing. So just like this, we're just doing the same thing. Cleaning up these edges, making them look nice. Okay, I have went all the way around my whole piece. You can see the hood here. I went across the top, all the way down, single crocheting as evenly as I can, all the way down to the bottom of the other side. So when I get down here, if you want to go turn and go back around again and do some more rows of single crochet, that's fine. It's your cape, whatever you want it to look like. I'm going to go ahead and finish now, so I'm just going to end by slip stitching here in the top of this last double crochet. Tie off, and then I'll have to hide all these tails. Yay, we're almost done. But now I'm going to sew on my clasps here at the top before I'll hide my tails at the end. So I got the right side of my work facing me. Just 1 second here. Alright, sorry, I adjusted the color there on my camera. Okay, so you can see where the hood starts right here, and then we have where we increased and stuff right here. This is where we're going to hook our latches onto. Now, if you don't have these latches, you can just make a like a chain and weave it through around up by the hood and have a long tie chain, put some tassels at the bottom or some beads on it. That will always work. You could use some buttons to I think it would look good with like 1 button here and hold it over, or 3 buttons down it, or that's just some ideas in case you don't have these clasps. But I'm going to sew my clasps on. Let's see. Here's my first row of the hood. I'm going to go on the row in between the first and the second row of our project, not counting the hood. So here's where our hood started. Here's row 1 of the project and row 2. So I'm going to sew 1 on here, and then I'm going to skip 1 row and I'm going to sew 1 on in between the next 2. So get another one out. Well, all in individual baggies. So I skipped this row, and then in between these two I will put another one, and then I will skip one row again, and then skip this row, and then in between these last two rows here before the bobbles is where I'll put my next one, like that. And then I'll match up the on the other side. I'll do the same. So here's my first row of the hood. I'm going to go in between the first and the second row of my project, and that is where I'll tie this on, or sew this on, and then you can see they'll clasp together like that. Now I'll go ahead and take them off here. Sewing them on. Normally I would probably use some type of matching thread, probably black, but for some reason I can't find my black thread. Just regular sewing thread and a sewing needle is how I'm going to sew mine on. You can use yarn if you want, or if you got yarn thin enough that'll go through the holes of these, or even embroidery thread. But I think I'm just going to use regular thread, and I'm going to sew them on, and you just sew them on like a button, kind of. Let me get a needle out of here. Regular sewing needle. So I went ahead and strung my thread through. Like I said, I'd probably better use a matching thread, but my black is gone for some reason, and it's getting 8 inches of snow today, so I can't really go anywhere to get any. So I'm going to make do with what I have. And you just tie a knot at the end here. I doubled my thread there. I pulled it through and doubled it up. So go ahead and put a knot at the end. What I do is just kind of roll it in between my fingers like that. Put a knot. Clip off any excess at the bottom. If you are good at sewing, I'm not really the greatest, but I make do. You sew it on however you normally would. But remember where we were going to put them. So I have one clasp here and one clasp here. I'm going to leave the, if you're working with the clasp like I am. If not, remember you can make a long chain. I think would look great with beads on it. You weave it through the hood and have it hanging down, or tassels on it. Buttons would look nice. But if you're working with these clasps, remember where we're going to sew them on at. So here's the first row of the hood. We're going to go in between row, actually it's row 1 and 2 of the very first row of the project before we put the hood on. And if you have these clasps, you want to leave the eye hanging off just a little bit, not really much, maybe like that. Maybe even, you know, just barely, to where half of your stitch goes through it. And then we'll sew it on through the holes that every clasp is different. This one has a few holes here. But to sew it on like this. Now you need to make sure you sew these on tight if you're using these metal clasps, because they are a little bit heavy and we don't want them to come off. Yes, black would look much better. I'm going to weave up in the back till I get to my next hole. I'm not going to tie off. And here's my next hole right here. So I'm going to go through that one. Just want to make sure you keep it sewed on straight and tight. And then I'm going to weave over here in between my stitches to the other side to the next hole, which is right here. Now if you have a different clasp than me, your holes might be in different spots, but wherever they're at, just do your best to get your piece sewed on nice and tight. I do wish I would have had black thread. Oh well. So Sometimes we just have to make do with what we have, don't we? So I'm going through in each hole 2-3 times to make sure it's on nice and tight. 3 times is probably better. You could even do it more if you wanted. Especially if you had thread that matched better. My thread wouldn't be as noticeable if you went through more times. Okay, once you get it sewed on, and then I always just kind of take it in the back and knot it up a couple times. Those of you that sew are probably laughing at the way I do this, but it gets the job done. Then I kind of just weave my tails in, or weave the thread in a few times, so I know it's not going to come undone, just like you're weaving in a tail. Now you want to do the same thing to the other side over here, so they clasp together. Only thing you just have to make sure is that you keep your rows in the same spot. So here's the row of my hood. We don't count that. So here's rows 1 and 2. We went in between those over here, so we want to do the same thing here. Here's your hook. Make it to where it barely hangs off, like that. You sew it on, and then they hook together like that. So I'm going to go ahead and sew on all 3 of mine. Alright, that's it. Once you get your clasps sewed on, or if you decided to use a string, that's fine, or buttons, that's fine. That's it. Get all your tails hidden, and that's what it looks like. I think it turned out pretty good. Just the hood here in the back. Here, I'll try to go slow. It's got the bobble detail. Nice shell detail. Please excuse my messy room. Here's the hood. Thumbs up. I like it. I do. I think that I'm pretty proud of it. Looks pretty good. I think any color would look awesome in it too. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial. Remember, you could do this. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my other tutorials or videos. I do a lot of yarn talk too. I'm going to put a playlist over there on the right hand side of some other shawls and ponchos and stuff in case you want to check them out. Maybe you'll find something else that you want to make. But if you like this, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. A share. And until next time, have a good day.